you doing, my friends? You guys know me. My name is Beto Gudino at the Christian Podcast headquarters in Costa Mesa, California, right after the apocalypse.
Yeah,
that's my tagline. But today we have in the bunker a very special guest. So it's our first ever in-person episode, and I'm so excited because today we have a gentleman, Ben Glassman. How are you doing, man?
Hey, good. Doing
Good.
great.
Cool.
The pandemic has not affected me at all. We're solid.
You're solid?
Yeah.
All right. How did you prepare for the pandemic then?
We didn't prepare. We just decided to live our lives the way we always have.
Awesome. Wow. It's like nothing happened.
We're all good.
All right. Love it. Well, Ben, thank you so much for being on the show. This is the first ever in-person podcast that I do for Christian Podcast. We've done, before we've done many in-person.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited because this is totally different than being on a Zoom call. I can actually see you face to face.
It's awesome.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, this is great.
And you are here because you're with Legacymakers.
Yep.
It's your nonprofit, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit.
Okay.
But first, I want to get to know you a little bit more.
Okay.
Right? So, Ben,
Sure.
if I would say, Ben, what do you do? What would be your response, or who are you?
Okay. Well, forgive me if I'm a little camera shy. Okay.
That's fine.
So who am I? Yeah, my name is Ben, and I am from Kansas originally. That's where I was born and raised till about end of high school, and then we went to Arkansas for Christian University, Bible College. That's where I met my wife.
Nice.
Yeah, so huge deal. And then, but my wife Megan is actually from California, and so we connected there in Arkansas, and then I moved out here, and we got married and had kids, and the rest is history. But yeah, we just started this nonprofit called Legacymakers. And it's been quite a journey coming up to it and kind of how it all started. But yeah, so.
Legacymakers. All right. Yeah, we'll get to that, man, because I really love what you guys are doing. We were talking at the park a few days ago, and it was super interesting, man. I checked out your website.
Nice.
And I love what you guys are doing, and I love what you guys stand for.
Yeah.
And I think people listening to this podcast or even watching can be so benefited from what you guys are doing, because I think the core of Legacymakers is family, and that's universal, right? That's everywhere in the world. So anyone listening, I think they'll be able to get something from it.
Yeah.
But Ben, let's go back to your upbringing. You were when we were at the park, you were saying that you were Catholic.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your faith background. How did you end up going to seminary, or what was it called?
Just Bible college.
Bible college.
You can call it that. Yeah.
What was your transition to now being married to your wife who met at Bible college and pursuing like a nonprofit with, I would say, with this very spiritual component, right? But what's your background? Why did you grow up Catholic, and then what was there ever a transition in your faith that made you want to pursue college and Bible college?
Grew up going to the Catholic Church, which is great, and then I got invited to a non-denominational or Christian church youth group in high school, and it was just like totally changed my life, like totally transformative, and like the environment and the people, it felt more real and just relevant to me, and it just kind of helped me accept God more, kind of helped me lean into a relationship with God. And also growing up, I'll be honest, had some challenges growing up in my home and in my family. My dad was an alcoholic, and my mom has also suffered from bipolar disorder. So it I think just kind of naturally, it just created a space for a little bit more toxicity, which, I mean, everyone's got issues. Every family's got problems. We've all had dysfunctions in the family.
Yeah.
And because of I think the environment that I was in with this new Christian youth group, it really compelled me to want to seek a deeper relationship with Christ. And so that's kind of what led later on, like towards the end of high school, going to like missions overseas in Nepal and like Kathmandu and all those different places. And then I went to Arkansas because my tennis coach in high school was actually leading the program that we were in. Which, I mean, it's kind of like a Bible college, but it was more of an intense leadership development program with a biblical studies degree. But nice. Within the program, you're like learning all these different things about like how to be, a better physical self, or, the different like kind of pillars of life, like physical, spiritual, relational, intellectual. Yeah. It was basically like building on all of those different pillars. As an individual, it's kind of what it was all about. So we had a lot of different like physical training. We trained for an Ironman triathlon. We did overseas training. We did missions training.
So you went to a Ironman?
Well,
you did
so
an Ironman?
No, I didn't.
Did you train?
I bailed out. But it's because I had broke my knee.
Oh.
And so I was kind of like on the slow track.
That would be a hard one if you have a broken knee.
It was bad. Funny story about that, actually. I broke my knee from wakeboarding, so I was really into wakeboarding in high school, and I basically was getting into like doing tricks and stuff, and I fell down, and like my whole like bottom of my leg was like went sideways and like totally snapped all the stuff in there. Anyway,
Ow.
In the when I was having surgery, they had to abort the surgery because the light bulb above, like when my knee was like wide open and they were fixing it, the light bulb above like came down and shattered in my knee.
No.
Yeah.
You're
just
kidding.
Totally crazy. Yeah.
Whoa.
So they had to abort it. They had to like power wash it all out and like everything
power wash your knee?
Yeah.
Knee?
Like I don't know how many gallons. I was asleep.
Oh, wow.
So I woke up and they're like, yeah, we're going to have to do this again. I'm like, what? So yeah, a month later had to go back and they did it again, but that was a pain. Anyway. Yeah, I forgot where I was going.
Well, the recommendation is fix your light bulbs before you operate.
Yeah, seriously. Make sure they're screwed in tight, guys.
Before you're in the operation room. Well, it's the part where you say, like, many of us, I won't say all of us, but many of us can so relate to coming from a broken family or a dysfunctional family. In your case, you mentioned just like this toxic habits, right, with alcohol or just being bipolar, right? In my case, my parents got divorced when I was, I don't even remember, like 11 or maybe a little younger, or somewhere in elementary, when I was still in elementary. But I'm the youngest of 3 siblings, so my siblings were already almost like teenagers, right, when this all was happening.
Yeah.
And then I married my wife, many years later, whom you met.
Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
And her story is very similar, right? She comes from a dad who was alcoholic. Her mom passed away when she was 14, and then the dad abandoned. Before the mom left, the dad abandoned her and their family. She's in a family of 4 siblings. So the dad was not around when mom passed.
Wow.
Right? And she's a teenager, and she's the oldest, and she has to take care of like 3 siblings, right? So she became almost the mom to them. No, she actually was kind of like the mom.
Yeah.
So anyways, uncles came in the picture and taking care of them for a while and whatnot. But of course, I've been married for like 12 years, so I know my wife's story pretty well.
Yeah.
And we actually have some sort of a ministry here in Costa Mesa with students, right? Estancia High School that is right across from our campus here.
Yeah.
And just getting to know kids' stories, you find that this happens again and again in different, right? The scenarios are a little bit different, but absent dads or alcoholism or drug abuse, whatever it is,
Totally.
right? But abandonment, like all these things that really mark you as a young person, right? As a young kid,
man.
as any family, right?
Your mind as a child
shattered.
is so malleable,
Exactly.
and shapeable. You just take it all in.
Yeah. So my wife had this realization when she was in high school. She grew up with all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then there comes a point where you're like, okay, I have the short end of the stick, right? And in high school, she realized, wow, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of kids who are going through similar stuff.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then she realized, wow, this is really not unique to me, right? There's a lot of people, and I think that's what kind of like caused us to get involved, with the high school and offer a little bit of help and hope to them. And I don't know if the situation was similar in your case, but what was it about your upbringing that you saw? Where was the turning point for you in your upbringing when you said, wow, there's a way to turn this around. There's a way for me maybe to not live the same kind of life that my parents lived, or help them in a way. Was there ever something like that in
Well, to be honest,
background?
I think me growing up, I think a lot of what I experienced was suppressed. And so I probably didn't really experience a significant turning point towards, understanding more of like how it affected me and like wanting to change and all that until actually I got married. Because marriage is like so much of like a magnifying glass on like all the different things. Because it's just like everything comes up. You're in this covenantal lifelong commitment, and it's so much easier to be yourself. But then the things that you naturally suppressed as a kid, they just start boiling up to the surface, and then what are you going to do about it? You got to start dealing with it and trying to understand it and figure it out. And so I went to like a lot of counseling, a lot of therapy, and just started realizing like all these different things and how kind of my upbringing affected me and what I brought into my family and in my marriage. But there wasn't a big change until, so we got married. And 3 months later, we got pregnant after we got married. And then once we finally had our first kid, so Camden, who's our oldest daughter now, she's 5 now. When we first had her, when she was just a baby, it was in the middle of a pretty, like, just a really busy season of life for me, where I was still going to school online. So I was, like, basically a full-time student online. I was working a job as facilities director at a church, and just trying to have a marriage, trying to have a family, and then having a newborn. And then in the midst of all of that, we were remodeling 2 apartments to try and save some money on our rent. And so it was just insane, like just so much going on. And I was just like basically non-existent as a husband and a father, from like working during the day and then coming back home, shoveling food in my mouth for dinner, and then going to the apartment to work on it until 1 or 2 in the morning for about 6 months.
Wow.
So it was just like this crazy time. And I just like was like, okay, this is not working. Like it was an unhealthy place for me. And I just kind of like finally came to this point where I was like, this is not working. This is enough. And at the same time, our church was going through this kind of transition process where we were spending some significant time really kind of re-envisioning who we were as a church and like what was our mission and our vision, and what were we going to do to reach our community, and like all the different kind of strategies around that, and our where do we want to be and where do we want to go. And that whole experience as a church, because that's where I was working, kind of inspired me. It's like, man, this is kind of cool. Like I wonder if this would help my family. And so that's kind of where the switch flipped. And I don't know, a couple weeks after that, my wife and I, Megan, we on our date night, we did this, like, we spent, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours just like thinking through, okay, who are we? Let's just slow down. Let's pause. take some time to like think about who are we as just individuals. Like, where do we come from? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What do we bring to the table as far as our family goes? And just kind of asking some really specific questions, we got really clear on like, now as a family, these are the things that we're going to draw the line in the sand with, as far as like what we believe in, what are our values, our even family mission. We just uncovered and really identified those things where they're like non-negotiable now, where it's like they kind of affect and help play into our decision making as a family of like what we're going to do or how we're going to spend our time or what do we need to say no to so we can say yes to the things that we really feel like we've been brought together for.
That's good.
So that was like the biggest boiling point for me and I think our family and myself, and then just realizing that like we got to make a change. Like if we keep doing this the way it is, then what's going to change from the previous generations.
Is that how Legacy Makers was born? Like what you're describing is what became Legacy Makers? Like
I mean,
asking the question like who are we as a family and all of that?
That was I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and that was like the seed, I think, for us, like the seed kind of planted inside of our minds and hearts. And just because we benefited so much from doing that, and like totally changed our life as a family. Megan, my wife, she does graphic design stuff, and so she took all of that we talked about and kind of encapsulated it into a really cool family crest that is like symbolic.
What is that?
A family crest?
Yeah, sorry, I'm from Mexico. I get away with that.
That's great. So a family crest is like, we actually talk about it in our legacy mapping sessions. But basically a family crest, if you think about like back to old medieval days, like in Europe, a lot of times like the kings and the queens would basically bestow upon these knights specific, and you can call them emblems, but basically they were called a coat of arms. That would basically tell the story of all of the accomplishments they've had as a knight. And then the knight had specific rights over that coat of arms, so no one else could have it.
Cool.
And then they would pass that down in their family from generation to generation. And then in the family, if like things changed or if a son or whatever got another accomplishment, they would tack that onto the coat of arms and then continue to pass it down. And so we kind of like took a spin on that and made it more modern, and so it's like more up to date as far as like what would be cool these days, cool. Kind of like and so we made ours into like a cool shield shape that we can make into a patch, like put on our backpacks or like our jacket or hat or something like that, but I mean something cool kind of about coat of arms in general, and we mentioned this, but if you relate God to being like the king or like the King of Kings, in a sense, it's like you're getting this crest. Like we got this crest from like we were just like praying and thinking about it, and like we just felt like this is what God wanted on our crest, if you will. And so it was just cool to like kind of relate that to the whole symbolism between like when the kings and queens gave the knights like their coat of arms, like God, the King of Kings, is giving us our crest for our family and what he sees it as. So
that's important. I had a podcast interview with this guy named Mark Charles, who's a Native American.
Oh, cool.
And he's running for president. So if you haven't seen that episode, go check out the episode.
Whoa, that's cool.
But it's so interesting because when he tells who he is, it's almost like he has to say this whole lineage of ancestry.
Really?
Because his mom is German.
Okay.
And then his dad's Navajo. So he's got to say, and he says it in his Navajo or whatever language. So he's like, my friends, this whatever. I don't know what he's saying, right? But something like that. But he needs to say, I come from the people that live in the forest, and
Really?
my mom comes from the country where the wooden shoe people, because
No way.
they're German, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how he has to say all of that almost like every time he introduces himself. It's like he has to, in a sense, maybe like show my crest, right?
Wow.
Show
Like this is
my
who I am,
identity,
this is my
right?
Yeah,
Where I
wow.
come from.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool idea. So when was Legacymakers born?
Okay, yeah. So Legacymakers, I mean, like I just kind of mentioned, like that was kind of the seed, and we had a thought like, oh, it would be kind of cool to see, if we could kind of fine tune that whole experience that my wife and I had, and kind of modify it to where it'd be replicable for families. And so we kind of had that thought, and we didn't do anything with it. I don't know, 4 or 5 years went by and nothing happened. But we've always had it in the back of our mind, and it has always been something that we, because we wrote everything down. We have it like on a nice 1-page sheet of paper that we pull out, a couple times a year, and like just evaluate how we did, and
that's good.
what do we want to do for the next year, and put it on the calendar. And and it's all like kind of true to who we are.
I love that.
But I wouldn't say that it really didn't birth until about a year ago now, a little over a year ago now, when we were kind of coming to this point, kind of needing to decide, what do we want to do with our lives? Like, what do we feel like we're called to do? What are we supposed to do? And this whole idea of like, family and family legacy was just like staying in our minds, and like we just felt like this is something that we need to really lean in on and see if this is what we're supposed to do. And so we took what my wife and I went through and really just tweaked it enough to where we could start kind of trying it out with some other families. So we started trying it out with a few families in our couples group, and some other people that we knew, and it ended up being really cool. And things that like they started to take and apply in their own life, and it just helped them get really clear on like who they are and what do they believe in, just like it did us. So that was like about a year and a half ago, and then the seed, I think, started to grow because of that. And we took some time to really pray and consider, because at this time I was still working at the church I was a part of, on staff, and we were just praying and thinking like, what, God, what do you want for us? What do you have for us? How can we serve you? And like during those times of prayer with Megan, and we took about a week just solid, just like really, really diving in, like, what do you want? Because it was a big decision, and it was kind of coming to a point where at my job I needed to decide, because it was like things were going well enough for Legacymakers to where it like could like something I needed to really either do full time or let go of, that kind of thing. And so while we were praying, the idea that family is the foundation of all of society just started taking like a deep,
that's massive,
started taking like a deep, I think, root in our hearts. Like that seed just like took root, and even more so to where family was meant to be a place where you can experience all the things of God and his characteristics and his personality and his his life that he intended his people to live. He meant for family to be that foundational place where you can learn how to forgive, and you can learn what it means to be accepted and love, without bounds, and have purpose and have integrity, and all these different attributes and values were meant to be built upon in family. But so often, and especially nowadays with technology and like the news, and there's so many distractions, and so many different things pulling our attention away. Family is often just a place that's marked with pain and tragedy and unfortunate circumstances. And it's sad and it's unfortunate. And so the idea of, family being the foundation of society, and the whole concept of legacy, and really taking what we do a step further, and almost like when we sit down with families now, I kind of relate it to like we are putting a magnifying glass on the DNA of your generation, and like picking it apart and putting things in that should have been there since the beginning, and helping them think about this and think about like the long-term impact of their family, but from the beginning. And so it's like helping them either start off on the right track, or maybe things haven't been going well, and so we're kind of helping them realign or get back on track. And it's just been incredible the way that what we have done has unified and brought hope to families and so much purpose. And our whole hope is that we as legacy makers can really start to inspire this movement, if you will, of like purpose and unity in families as like the foundation of society. Yeah. Because if we do that, then that's going to enable the next generation to live in the positive light of their parents' legacy. And it's going to help them be able to prevent and even overcome some of those previous ancestral family breakdowns and tragedies and issues, to create a healthier society. And it's a long-term commitment. It's a long-term investment. Your family is your life. Yeah. And so it's like you're like rewiring and reimagining the DNA of your family and your generational history, and almost like starting a new path of all the different values and attributes and positive values that you could have. And then we take it a step further and just get really intentional about like, now what are we going to do about this? How are we going to apply this to our life every day, every week, every year? So it is something that is ensuring your legacy is one of like, positive value. Yeah. So it's just been really cool to see.
So as you were talking about family as the foundation of society.
Yeah.
I don't know why it brought me back to my junior high or middle school days.
Yeah.
Because I think the school I was going to, this was still instilled in us that, hey, family is the foundation of society. Like maybe not phrased that exact same way, but it was like family is the nucleus, right? Is the most important part of a society.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know where as a society we lost that along the way, in the last 30 years or so. Maybe like you were saying, we have so many distractions and all the internet and maybe like all these things that have played out, right? Social media in the last 10 years have had a role in pulling us away from even things like the table, right? Because I was looking at your website where the table used to be the place where families come together, right? And now with like you were saying, people working different hours within the same family, right? Dad going to work at night or whatever. Even we have 7-Eleven. Now it's not even 7-Eleven. It's like all day open.
Yeah, right.
Right? People used to not work on Sundays, sometimes even Saturdays. In not every society, but I remember in Mexico growing up, like Sundays, nothing was open. Maybe some restaurants, but it was like family time. Go out and explore and be with family. And then somewhere along the ways, we've closed those doors, and we're like, we got to be productive and all these things, and businesses needs to be open every single day. And in a sense, that starts affecting the family little by little, right? Because now you have different rhythms. Yeah. And I think maybe Legacy Makers it's bringing us back to a rhythm of family being together, which is great. And and also I love when you said you didn't say you evaluate like a couple times a year. It's just same thing, for whatever reason I'm thinking of my middle school days, because I don't know if you had that, but the school I was going to, I remember we had this thing called auto evaluation. Okay. So it was, you're going to grade yourself.
Oh,
right. So
okay.
the teacher said in Mexico we had at least the school I was going to, we had a system from 1 to 100, right? So 100 is A plus,
Yeah.
right? 100
That's
is
the
you
best.
pass, it's the
Yeah,
best.
Exactly.
So the teacher would say, okay, in this test, I'll give you 90, right? You answer all these questions. But then they would say, they would have another slot on the test, and it said auto evaluation.
Interesting.
And it was like, okay, what's the grade that you give yourself?
Really?
Yeah, and this was middle school, man.
Wow.
And it's so interesting because I remember,
There you go.
Sometimes we would put,
Yeah,
I mean, I always felt like I had to give an honest answer, and then I would be the one that, I don't know.
You didn't give yourself 100 every time?
70, or 80 or whatever. I felt like
That's
I
funny.
never, for whatever reason, maybe in sports or something like that, because even in sports they they gave us like auto evaluation.
Yeah.
So but I never put 100 for the most part. And I remember like looking at my friends, I'm like, that guy doesn't deserve 100. And they'd be like, 100.
Nice. Well,
but
that's
I love
good.
that at least they were confident.
Yeah.
Like 100.
Right.
And I'm like, of course not.
That's hilarious.
But it's auto evaluation, right? It's whatever
exactly.
you're gonna put. And I love this idea, because I think somewhere along the way, I think I've lost that not the capacity, but the coming back to like, hey, let's rethink things. Let's bring them to the table again. Let's reimagine or reset or just auto evaluate. Let's see where we're at.
Exactly.
Do things need to change? Do things need to stay the same?
Yep.
Do we need to focus on more things? Do we need to say, like you said, do we need to say no to certain things so that we can say yes to other things
Exactly.
that are part of our goal as a family?
Yeah.
I love that, man. How are you helping families do that? Because I mean, now I feel like, yes, this is something I for sure feel like my family could be benefited from, and family is listening, right?
Yeah.
But just tell me about the steps that you guys take with these families in helping them, auto evaluate, and then maybe where do you give them direction for what's the next step as a family to take?
Yeah, so like the beginning is really we call it legacy mapping, and it's like our like specific process that we take families through. And it's like 2 sessions, and then, excuse me. So we have a legacy mapping, and so after we've walked them through this process and helped them identify their values as a family, their mission as a family, and then we start dreaming about like, okay, what are the things that we could do to now demonstrate this and apply it to our family and start implementing it. And so it kind of like basically maps out, in a sense, like one of the key questions that we ask is, let's say, you're 80, 90 years old, and you're nearing the end of life, okay? And you're coming to this point where you're really starting to think about, what kind of life did I live? How will my family, my kids and my grandkids, how will they remember me by? What are those things that you really see as like the non-negotiable, like if there was like 2 or 3 things that they need to like take from your life and the way that you lived your life, and they need to apply to their life and walk that out, in essence. And so we have them kind of think about it like that. And there's other questions that we ask, and then after they go through the legacy mapping, and then we set them up on like our yearly, we call it just a subscription plan, to where now every month they're getting resources and content provided that encourages them and continues to inspire them. And then we call them every quarter, once a quarter. We're going to call, because we have it. We have your legacy map. We have your values. We have your mission. We have your action items. And we're going to call you and we'll say, hey, the Gudinos, how you doing? Like, how's your values? We have it. Like, have you guys made any action items? Have you guys done anything? How can we help you? How can we encourage you? You know, we check in.
So you're a little bit like coaches at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just kind of coaching and kind of guiding along the way, and that's kind of where the piece of like we're helping them ensure that they're taking the right steps to leave a lasting positive legacy in their family and really build that up. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it.
That's so good, man.
Yeah.
And this idea of legacy makers is so massive because a legacy is like you're saying, right? What you're gonna be remembered for, that's your legacy, right? And in a sense, it's almost like your legacy could be a bad legacy or a good legacy.
Exactly. Everyone's
right?
gonna leave a legacy, man.
Yeah,
everyone's
exactly.
gonna leave a legacy.
But I love this other word, makers, because it's like it has a more intentionality to it, right? Because if you want to leave a bad legacy, it's almost like, okay, you're on the right path, right?
Yeah.
Don't do anything or just pursue whatever you want.
Exactly.
You're there, right? But if you want to make sure like you get to the legacy that benefits others and benefits your family and even generations to come.
Yeah.
I think that takes intentionality.
Exactly.
And I love that because it's makers, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen if you don't make it and take the steps. I want to tell you this funny story, man, because I mean, you guys are legit, like we met your wife and we met at the park a few weeks ago and it was awesome. And right now just talking to you and, checking out your website and everything and just kind of knowing who you guys are. I mean, you guys are legit, right? But I'm going to tell you this story because it's just for the people that maybe sometimes are on the fence about getting to know somebody new.
Yeah.
And maybe this happens to me after this experience that I'm about to tell you, right?
Okay.
When I'm meeting somebody new, and especially when it's a couple, a new couple, I'm always a little bit on the fence because of this experience where we met a couple. We were at IKEA, me and my wife, looking at furniture, right? Like the new chair or whatever.
Okay.
Well, we were actually at the light area, right? With all the hanging lights and whatnot. So anyways, we're buying a light. And then this couple sees us and then they see like, oh, these guys speak Spanish too. Huh. Right? So it's like, oh, so they approach us and my wife loves talking to every single person in the world, right? She loves talking, meeting new people. So anyways, they approach us, we start talking and it was a nice conversation, right? Oh, no, we actually found out we were both Mexican, like they are Mexican and we're Mexican, but they're from a different city. Okay. So it was pretty cool, like we found like commonality and whatnot. Like, totally. That's cool. Maybe we should hang out a little more. And then they mentioned this word, man. And I don't know if you have experiences with this, but they're like, we would really love to introduce you to our mentors. Okay. So they're like, mentors? No, it just sounded a little.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. Oh. It just sounded a little bit funny, right? And funky. I'm like, okay.
I know exactly
and Millie didn't say anything, but okay, So eventually we met again.
Yeah.
And we're at a table and we're having a great time.
Oh,
and,
gosh.
And you guys would be so good for our mentors. You guys really got to know our mentors.
Interesting.
But maybe you're not ready. Okay, we're not ready. Okay. So eventually we find them at church.
Really?
They happened to show up at church.
Oh, damn.
I don't think they were necessarily like following us and like, I know we want to see these guys. Maybe, right? Because that would have been really sneaky.
Yeah.
But
seriously.
Anyways, we meet at church, and at this point, they're like, wow, this is really a sign from God, right? You guys really got to meet our mentors. And at this point, Millie's like, I know what this is about.
Yeah.
I come from Mexico. I know what this is about. Even in my own personal experience in Mexico is like I went to a few of these things, like pyramidal whatevers in Mexico. So I kind of was giving them the benefit of the doubt, like, no, this is not about that.
No,
right?
I've been there too, man. We've done the same thing.
And then eventually the last one, we're meeting at our house, and then my wife's, they're like, you guys got to meet our mentors. And then my wife's like, I know what you guys are about to tell us. Is it Amway?
Oh, yeah, Amway.
And they're like, how did you know?
Oh,
How
my
could
gosh.
you know? How, like, they are
it's a
so
classic.
surprised, right? And
Yeah.
they even, like, were willing to, like, give us books and, like, all this stuff.
We're on to you, Amway.
Exactly. But sometimes when you meet people, you know, you think they come with the best of intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And really what they're doing is it's self-seeking, right? That what they're doing is they're trying to build their own pyramid, right? And in this sense, I feel like some people could be on the fence when it's things like family, you know, and involvement, and especially when people gotta maybe put their money and invest,
Yeah.
right? But I think this is a legit approach, man, because it's about your family,
Yeah.
right? It's not my family. I mean, you guys went through the process, like you mentioned before.
Yep.
But it's about developing your own legacy for your own family.
Yeah.
And that in itself, and like you were saying, family is the center of society.
Yeah.
So when you invest in that, you're
Exactly.
investing outside of yourself. And I think that's I mean, what would you tell people if they want to sign up for this? What would be your, why should they check it out? What would you say is the I don't know, your point of sale or whatever it
Yeah,
is?
I mean, the way I describe it is that like what we said before is, you're gonna leave a legacy, and the backbone behind all of it is intentionality, and honestly, like the process for us doesn't matter who you are. Like you have to do this. It's so critical. It is so critical to your family, and then thinking about where you come from and where you came from and the type of environment you were raised in, and this is just creating yourself an opportunity and a space to re-envision that, and it's so necessary, and part of the reason too is because it's like we're taking a cumulative approach to affecting societal change to where we are together walking down this path as families united as legacy makers.
Yeah.
Because Legacy Makers isn't just the name of a nonprofit. Legacy Makers are families who have committed to be intentional with the way they live their lives every single day. And so if you're a family, and if you have a family, if you're a single parent, if you're a grandparent, what have you, you have to do this. And so much so that, I'm not like trying to just beg here, but I'm just like, for your family, for the future generations, for your kids, for your grandkids, like we have given our lives to make sure this is happening. And yeah, that's how I would describe it.
That's
but
man.
Really, I think the biggest telltale sign is like once you go through it,
Yeah.
that's when you're going to realize like, oh, wow.
That's awesome.
This is,
yeah. The way I'm picturing it right now, I think it's, as I was saying, maybe in the last 30 years or however many that we've lost the table and that we have all this technology. And as we move into the 21st century, something like Legacy Makers, to me, it sounds almost like God is giving us the tool for discipleship of the 21st century.
Yeah, man.
But discipleship of the family. So in a sense, he's saying, hey, it's almost like, do you, as a society, do you guys want to make it to the following century or the upcoming centuries?
Seriously, man.
This is the tool.
Yeah.
I was almost like playing with this when we were at the park. It's like, wow, it sounds a little bit like focus on the family, right? Like they were up to something right when these guys started their thing. But I love it, man. How can people sign up if they do? Where can they go to check it out? What are like the social media, website, or phone number? How can people reach you?
Instagram. The best way is just going to the website, which is just chooseourlegacy.com, and you can look around there if you want, but you can sign up, and then what we do is we just have people like click the button and then they fill out the form, and I would even mention too, like it's cool because we have donors who, like, if, we have people kind of give their income level. And so that helps us kind of identify, okay, where are they at in the bracket and what are they able to afford? And so what's cool is that if it looks like it's unapproachable, like the fee to go through it, that's okay, because we have people who believe so much in what we're doing and the value that you take away from this, that we provide like scholarships to do it, because it's just like almost a no-brainer, almost. But yeah, just go to the website, check it out.
Okay, so chooseourlegacy.com?
Chooseourlegacy.com.
Okay, chooseourlegacy.com. That's the website, guys. Check it out. Legacy Makers. Ben Glassman. I met your wife and I was about to say this stupid joke. I'm going to say it, but it's like, I was going to introduce you as Ben Glassman and Megan Glasswoman.
Nice. Dad joke of the year.
Right? I even feel bad just trying to remember my own joke. Oh, man.
It's hilarious.
Feel so bad. That's the worst way to end a podcast.
Right.
One other question. Is this only for Christian people, or can anybody sign up? Is there any, like the spiritual component in this? Who is this for?
Thanks for asking. That's actually a good question, because I think you said it, but I think the cool thing about this is, my wife and I were Christians, okay? But to your point, family, regardless of what you believe, whatever faith background you have, family is universal, like what you said. And, everyone's got family. Everyone has an idea of family. Everyone knows what it could be, what it should have been. They've had experiences. Everyone has it. It's universal. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that regardless of what you believe in, like, you got to get intentional with your family. You got to make strides to instill positive values. And that's what's going to make you a legacy maker and affect future generations. So yeah,
awesome.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so there you have it. Ourlegacy.com. Ben Glassman. Check it out. Legacy Makers. Man, thank you so much for being on the show. This is awesome. How did you feel, being like the first ever in-person guest on the Christian Podcast?
First ever in-person guest and first ever personal podcast. I've never done podcasts, so it was awesome. No, you do a great job. I'm really, really thankful that you allowed me to share the story. And so, thank you for asking good questions, and thanks for opening up the time.
Is there anything else you would love to say that you feel like, oh, no, I really wanted to say this? And
I don't know if I said it, and you can throw it in there or do whatever you want, but I like to just always mention that, if you look at all the different societal issues on the surface, from like the more extremes of, homelessness or substance abuse, human trafficking, to maybe the lesser extremes of divorce, maybe fatherlessness, workaholism, those types of things. On the surface, more often than not, each of those surface level issues can be traced back to, at some point in the family, they didn't learn how to like deal with life or cope with life, or how to have intention and purpose. They weren't instilled, helpful, positive, godly values. And so that's part of what Legacy Makers' purpose is like stemming the root of the societal issues, symptomatic issues. Because the issues that we see aren't just symptomatic, they are systemic to the family. Yeah. So, just wanted to share that.
There you go. Okay, so survivors. From the bunker, we share our love. Thank you for watching. See you guys on the next episode, if we make it.
Exactly.
Okay, see you later, guys.